this series?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just try it.
You're okay with like totally, okay, we'll see.
Hello, and welcome to the Story Weaver's Table. I'm Cleopatra Margot, one of the authors that is hosting this new series.
And I am Caitlin Grace. I'm very, very excited to be doing this with Cleopatra. I'm excited to welcome you to our table where we'll discuss all kinds of authorly things.
Yeah, and I think for a little bit of backstory, we've known each other since 2018. So we've been writing alongside each other since both of us started writing and publishing, which I don't know how it can be 7 years ago already. But I'll share a little bit about me, and then Caitlin will share a little bit about her, and then we'll kind of get into why we're recording these videos to start with, and what our goal is with our writing, and so on. So a little bit about me is that I have been writing, I guess you would say my whole life maybe, but I've been writing and publishing books since 2017. My first book was a co-written historical novel called Love in the Rain, and since then I have written and published I think 14 books, 13 or 14 books. I have 3 different series. I have the Faith to Love series, which is set in a small town in Nebraska, kind of inspired by my hometown. And then my most recent 6 books are set in Balsam Falls, Nebraska, which is also a fictional town, but I made it up completely from scratch, and it's a lakeside town, and what you can expect in my books is a lot of family dynamics, both blood family and chosen family. There is always a love story, and then there's also a little bit of mystery, and so there's like a lot of healing and all of that goes on, and you can find those on this website under Cleopatra Margot. I think it's Cleopatra Margot's books or something like that under the bookshop. So that's a little bit about my writing, and yeah, you want to talk about your books?
Yeah, and so my start, I hated to read. I hated to write until about high school days. I discovered the O'Malley Chronicles by D. Henderson, and that is what changed my whole perspective on reading. My grandmother and my mom had been pushing me, you need to start reading, you need to read like in the Christian fiction genre, and so they introduced me to the O'Malley Chronicles, which if you've never read that, I really, really recommend it. It's a good inspirational Christian suspense series. And I started realizing I had the strange desire to start writing stories, and writing stories, not only just stories, but stories that would encourage and uplift and leave someone thinking, leave someone just literally thinking. Because, you read a lot of different stories, and this isn't to put other stories down, but maybe you don't always leave that story feeling inspired or encouraged or whatever. So this was one of those things, and it encouraged me, and I thought I want to do the same thing for someone else in that way. So eventually my mom and I started working up, ideas for what is now the Lawson series. And I'm thankful to God, because I told him, I was like, if you want me to write, you're gonna have to give me the stories to do this. Because I had no clue what I was doing. And Cleopatra, alongside comes Cleopatra, and she walked me through everything. I love it. She walked me through like just publishing the first 2 books, and just even just bouncing back and forth off of each other. It was just so nice. So I do write Christian fiction romance, but I also add inspirational Christian fiction romance when I tell somebody that I write, because I do want them to leave feeling encouraged and inspired. A lot of my books include scripture and faith themes, second chance, and just hope, because that's what we all need. We all need hope. We all need to feel inspired. And I do weave sometimes a little bit of mystery or suspense in my books. I love reading that, so I love to incorporate that into my books. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Hopefully. Well, I wrote another book too. Finding Home Again, just released after so many years of not writing. That can be a whole nother podcast or show episode. So
yes, yeah. Well, and I think you talk about kind of sharing a fun fact. or about why we write, and I think we both described it a little bit. And I totally forgot when you were mentioning the series that kind of like inspired you to write in the first place. I didn't mention like my favorite series of all time and the series that inspired me to write. It's the Canadian West series by Jeanette Oke. It's historical Christian fiction because Jeanette was one of them who pioneered that genre back in like the 70s and 80s. But it's more than just like the romance or what I don't know, it's more like what we both want to share. It has so much more meaning. And like Caitlin said, she wants to leave you feeling inspired and that kind of thing. And then it also leaves you feeling convicted too of like, what am I not doing in my life that I should be doing or whatever. And so that's kind of the series that started it for me. And I think like a fun fact about that is I discovered those books in 2016. And I would have been 14 at the time, something like that. And so when I started writing and I published my first novel like on my own just after my 16th birthday, a lot of people were just so surprised that like I wrote, you know, themes of romance into my books, but then also just like the depth of which I wrote at that age. And I'm like, I mean, first of all, I don't know if I can really explain it other than that I was homeschooled and I read a lot of books.
Yeah.
But like, it's just funny because it's like come naturally to me, and it's something kind of like Caitlin said, I can't really explain it. It's like, God, you have to give me these stories because I'm not doing it necessarily on my own. I'm the one who's actually putting the words down on paper, that kind of thing. But like, it's something that I can't really explain. But I think kind of the fun fact of what I was wanting to share is that I've been writing since I was 15, or like publishing books since I was 15. I published my first solo book when I was 16, and just people would like be like, how old are you? And so now I'm like, it's weird not to get that question anymore. But yeah, I guess that's the series that inspired me and still inspires me. I mean, I still pick up those books and just like look through them when I'm kind of wondering what my purpose for writing is, or when I'm kind of struggling with the story, when I just need to be reminded why I started in the first place.
Well, yeah, and I will literally pick up Dee Henderson's, it's The Negotiator, the first book in the O'Malley Chronicles, and just even sometimes not even reading the whole thing, but flipping through it for inspiration. It reminds me why I do it, and also just, I love that book, so it excites me too. But it's I don't know, that's, I guess, I don't know the words to form whenever I think about that. I know whenever I read that, I left feeling just very, very encouraged in God and in my walk with God. And the book specifically is about a set of siblings who do not know God as their personal Lord and Savior. And so as you read the books, you see the siblings turned from a life of sin to a life of living with Christ. And so it almost reminded me why my life is meant to be more than just walking on this earth, but it's more than it's meant to be sharing the gospel, and I can do that through writing books. And I think that's something very, I don't know, exciting, and I think it's unique that God has, or I count it as a blessing, as something that God has given me the ability to do, and I can't do it without him. I can't.
Yeah, well, and I feel like sometimes like fiction is looked at, I don't know, as a lesser genre. I'm not going to necessarily say that, but like it can't be impactful and inspiring and like change the world. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to go out and be like big and change the world like that. I'm not saying that at all. But like I've had those thoughts of like, I don't think this is gonna like make an impact. Like, I don't know if it would change someone's life or inspire them to change or whatever. And then I'm like, but I was given this gift.
Yeah.
And so if I was given this gift, first of all, who am I to not use the gift? Because in our mental attire series, actually, we talk about like how not using the gifts we're given is disobedience to God. But then second of all, this is how I express like those ideas, like Caitlin was saying, like this is how I express God and how I share him with the world. And that's how I've been given the gift to do that. And so that's something just this last year, I would say, is something that I've really, I don't want to say struggled with. At a time it was more struggling, and then now it's kind of coming to understand of like, this can be a very important gift. It is a very important gift. And so I feel like people kind of lose sight of that when you, depending on how you present yourself, if you're an author or you're writing and you haven't published a book, it's like, hold on, you need to take a step back and like realize what gift you do have and be not proud in like a worldly way, but proud that God is giving you that to share with the world. And so I would just encourage, whether you're starting out or you've published, I mean, I've published 14 books and I still feel that way sometimes. I'm like, I don't know if this is being like significant or anything. I just encourage you that it is. We all need that reminder, usually daily. And so, something else that we wanted to talk about is how with our writing, we want to bring standards back, and this could be for any like area of what we write, but I feel like especially in like the love story, the romance parts of our books, what we're trying to portray in them, the content we do or do not have in our books. And so if we want to talk a little bit about that, maybe.
Yeah, so I think as far as, standards back, I think even just godly men and men standing up for, what is right, and women also being feminine and enjoying how God has created the two genders, and watching those blend beautifully. I think I guess if you want to start into like bringing our standards back, I think that's a good way to kind of look a glimpse into what we mean by bringing our standards back, is those unique roles that God has given us and incorporating them in our books. And it may be being an encouragement to, if there's a man reading our book or if there's a woman reading our book, it would maybe leave them thinking, should I, how is this how I should act? Or maybe it'll inspire someone to be more bold and courageous, or the woman to be more soft and kind-hearted and, I don't know, gentle. I'm literally naming off fruits of the spirit, but that's what I'm thinking about. Standards of the fruits of the spirit and biblical roles. So
yeah,
I don't know if you
but I think yeah, something that like I've been really thinking about recently, and with what I'm currently writing or working on, is like having, like you said, the men and the women fulfill a different role both in real life and then represented in fiction. And we'll talk about the men for a minute and then I'll get to the women. Men who are, it's not about them being perfect. They're not, none of us are perfect, but it's like, are they godly, or are they at least trying to follow God's will for their life? Are they leaders? Are they strong both in their life and in their faith and like all of that? Are they willing to take responsibility, like that kind of thing? That's the kind of men that I want to write. It doesn't, again, make them perfect, but it makes them willing to try, and they're pursuing the love interest with that steadiness and that intention. And so then on the flip side for the women, it's like, in my own life, I'm like, I want to be virtuous and feminine and gentle and kind. But then it's also the whole narrative of the strong, independent woman. Like, that's not what I seek to have in my books. I think that a woman can be strong and soft at the same time. I do think that we have strength and dignity, just as Proverbs 31 says. But like, we're also meant to be the softer one. We're not meant to be equal. God created us equal, but in different ways. And so I think what we mean when we say bringing standards back, just this is for the romance specifically, I think we'll kind of talk about other areas too. It's like having those two roles defined and then showing how they complement each other, because that's how they're designed to be. We're supposed to be each other's helper, and we're supposed to help each other first in our walk with God, and then together, and then onto children or family members or whatever it is. And so like for me, that's my whole goal, is how am I portraying them? Am I portraying them in a realistic, godly way of what the roles they were made for? Or am I kind of going off of a worldly way of like, instant gratification or different content that I don't put in my books that is not godly. And so that's kind of what it means to me, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of times whenever, like, we talk about, I don't know how to word this, but I'll get it out. I think about my characters and finding love. This is the easiest way for me to put it. Okay, Bree in the beginning is very stubborn. She wants to be independent. She wants to be on her own. And Brandon's very, I don't know if you want to say pushy and egotistic. Okay, I don't want them to stay in that category. And so my goal in that story is to eventually show them how they can live out their, their biblical standards, and how it will work so much better whenever they do come to that realization. And then you see how things beautifully blend, or God works things out. Yeah, you may have different trials and whatnot in life, but you've got God on your side, and you've got each other working for each other, and you're not opposing each other. I love stories like that. I love when you take them from literally like the ground up, and then you take them through different obstacles. But it shows your readers that characters are flawed too, and I know these are made up characters, but we're all flawed, and we have to learn. And I think bringing those standards back and opening people's eyes that way is really cool. It's really neat, and it's a privilege to be able to do that. And it will leave your readers thinking something. They will leave thinking and maybe feeling inspired in some way. That's what I pray for anyways. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I've had readers reach out to me and say, like, this, made me think, or I felt like I related to this character, like that kind of thing. And so it does make an impact. And when I was talking about earlier how you're like, I don't know if it makes an impact, it doesn't have to be the entire world. You could have one person reach out to you and they tell you either it related to my story, or this character inspired me to do ABCD, whatever it is. That's why we do it. That's what the meaning behind it is. It's to connect with people before it is to make money or be famous. Like, that is not in my head. Of course, yes, you want to sell books, you want to make, naturally. But I'm trying to connect with readers. That's why I'm like, I don't call them customers. They are customers when you buy my book, and I greatly appreciate it, but you become a reader. You become a member of, like, my community. And that's really the important thing, or at least to me, that's what I do this for. And I think, like you were saying, is when you take characters from the ground up, so people see, okay, this character wasn't perfect in the beginning, they're not perfect in the end, but they had this growth, they made these changes, they could take these steps. So now I feel like I can take these steps, and that's where it can be impactful. And we've talked about this in our other video series that I was mentioning earlier. We'll link them below. But, like, everything that you do is influencing somebody. So in our case, every word we write is influencing somebody. It's either going to be in a positive or a negative way, and we have that control over what image and that kind of thing we're putting out in the world. And I think it's actually a great responsibility in a very good way, but it is a responsibility of what are we putting out there, and how is it going to affect the people that are reading it.
Well, yeah, and stories reach the heart, I think, sometimes in a way like lectures or just facts cannot. Even speaking from personal experience, fiction can encourage, it can inspire, it can even plant seeds of faith. And so I don't take that lightly. In a world with noise and darkness, Christ-centered stories offer light, they offer hope. And I don't take that lightly. It is a responsibility that I feel like that God has given me. I'm thankful to be a part of the Christian fiction genre. And I do, words are powerful and stories are powerful. And I'm thankful to God that I'm able to do that with his help.
Yes. No, I completely agree. And like I said, sometimes when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I'm making a difference, something comes along and reminds me of why I do it. Yeah. Like I said, it's either a message from somebody saying how this inspired them or impacted them, or it's picking up a favorite book like we were talking about earlier, or it's picking up one of my books and be like, wow, I created this. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And I think something else that we kind of wanted to touch on is how we don't write books just for women. Yes, that's our, I guess you would say, target audience, because that's who we connect to. but I have had men. My brother reads my books as I'm writing them. My dad does too. There's men in my life that they do read my books, and so I think we kind of wanted to touch on that. It's such a stereotypical thing of like, you hear like love story or romance, and that's why I try not to market them solely that way, because I don't want to turn anyone, men or women, away from them, because there's so much more than just a love story in both of our books. Yes, that is one of the central plot lines, but I feel as though we have so much more to share, and there's a lot of other authors too. And we can even put some book recommendations. We're going to be working on getting that up for you guys. But like, there's so much more in faith-based books than just a love story, even if that's the central plot line. We're sharing about God first. We're sharing about family relationships, friendships, all of that, and just like the character's inner growth. Like, I think we both write very character-driven stories. Because there's plot-based and then character-driven, and we both write very character-driven stories. It's about their character arc, how they grow, how they get from this point to that point, and showing the, I guess you would say, struggle or the changing along the way of like, it's not perfect. They might have moments where they're very frustrated, just like we get in real life, but like, that's what we write. And so I think it's actually important for both men and women to read that, because it can be impactful to both of them.
Well, exactly. And I've had multiple men, and I a lot of them that I know are family that have read my books, but I know that they're going to be honest. And like, if it's not going to be good, if my book's not good, they're going to tell me. But I've had multiple read it, and just with Finding Home Again, recently, like people sharing on Facebook, and men, you know, that this is encouraging, can't wait for the next book. Like, this spoke to me in some sort of way. And I'm thankful for that, because I want, like, whether you are a man or a woman, I want you to be able to pick up my book, and like I said, to be encouraged or inspired in some sort of way. And whether that is seeing that through, you know, my main characters, Richard and Lizzie in my new book, or whether it's through, you know, maybe a character even in the background, because I like to try to develop a story with them as well. But I think it is important to remember not to like be like, oh, that's just a girl thing, especially when it comes to the, you know, the type of stories that we do write, because you can learn something from it, whether you are a man or a woman. And I don't just say that for you to read my book, but I say it because, you know, we write stories to encourage, to uplift, to inspire. So whether you are a man or a woman, I think you can read this and you can get something out of it and be inspired in some sort of way, or be inspired to change in some way.
Yeah. Well, I think something that's important to note is that we both write realistic fiction. So it is fiction, like you said. The characters are not real. In our head, they very much feel real. But they're not real, but we're writing them. One, I get inspiration from real life constantly. I mean, people, if I know you or anything, there's little things that I just observe naturally, and they get put into my books, whether it's main characters, side characters, whatever. Just ask my brother about it. But like, because we're trying to write realistic characters, that means there are men and women both in the stories. And so for both readers, you can learn from both characters, and there are those mannerisms and habits and story arcs that are based on realistic circumstances. So it might not be something that actually happened in my real life, or that I know in someone else's life, but like, they're realistic. They're not, you know, completely out there, so they are fiction. But when you put the word realistic in front of it, it also has a different weight to it and a different responsibility of like, these aren't just, you know, fluffy rom-coms that get a very bad rap in some cases for a good reason. We'll talk about that at a later time. And there's nothing wrong with some of those. Like I said, there's some that we will talk about that are not as healthy, but we are writing to uplift and inspire and to convict and to change people. And so I think that's kind of a big difference compared to some, like I said, rom-coms or whatever you would want to call them, is that we're writing realistic characters so that it can be applied to real life. You know? And so when you pick up one of our books, or even when you connect with us and ask us about our books, we will try to direct you so that we can share those realistic characters and help you and then like the people around you become a better person or continue to grow in your faith or whatever it is. And that's something that I think we both are aware of and we take seriously. And then, I mean, we also both have humor in our books, so there's a lot of fun too, you know? It's like it's a good balance of lightheartedness and then I don't want to say reality, that sounds really bad. But I think you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good blend, like, and that's life for you, like literally. Life is full of its ups and downs. Life's full of, you know, laughter and tears and, you know, trials that we go through, and that's what I try to put in my books, not to make things heavy, like, but that's life. And I think it shows us how we can cope with the things that gets thrown our way sometimes and how we can cope with them, you know, with God on our side. And so writing realistic fiction like that, I feel like it is, I don't know, it will point, I know that I can point others to Christ, and you can do it like with I guess other different types of fiction as well, but like point others to Christ in a realistic way, like in a daily life way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's what I was trying to say too.
Okay, yeah. Just piggybacking off of you there a little bit, but yeah. Oh, something. Sorry.
No, you're good. Well, I think that's what I was trying to say is like it's supposed to inspire you in your daily life. And when you see these characters going through something difficult or whatever, it's not to make it heavy or to make it too similar to real life. It's to make it like real life. And so when they get through that moment and you see them on the other side of it, it's like, okay, I will get through this moment or this experience or this hardship or whatever it is and be on the other side. But the characters also usually have to take steps to get there. And so it tells you that it doesn't just happen on its own. You have to take responsibility in your own life, like the characters typically learn in the book. Is like if they want things to change, if the hero wants to, you know, marry the heroine, then he has to take steps to get there. Like those kind of things inspire me in real life, and I hope they inspire our readers in real life too, of like, you have to be willing to do what it takes to get there. But when you read something like this, it inspires you because you see someone else doing it. And I think that sometimes it's the nudge we need, as long as it's a healthy nudge, a healthy encouragement. And that's what we're both trying to create.
Exactly. And it's like, because another one of our points is we're not starting something new. This is something that's literally been around for a long time, but it's something that's needed. Like, and it needs like, I don't know if revamped isn't the right word, but like it needs brought up again. Revived. Yeah, thank you. It does. It needs to be revived. Like, it needs brought up again. People need to be encouraged when they read a book. They need to be inspired. They need to see like life isn't just mountaintops, but it's all the things in between too. How we get through them, how we experience things, and how we cope with things and react with things. And so no, this isn't something new, but it's something that is needed right now.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that is probably a good place to wrap up, because if you know, once you get to know us, you'll know that we can talk for a very long time, and we want to keep these at a good length so that you can take what we've said and think about it, and then come back with another episode whenever we make it work, you know? We don't have a set schedule. I do want to mention, and I forgot to mention this earlier, that we will be having guests on here too. So we will have authors and readers on here, which I think will be fun to be able to not just come at it from our perspectives, but from other perspectives, both from the reader standpoint and the author standpoint. And so I guess I'm not good at closing out on our other videos. My mom always closes them out, so we're just going to try to do this the best way we can. But we hope that you can be inspired by this, and we hope that you will look at our books, and like I said earlier, just reach out to us and connect with us. Even if you haven't purchased our books or you haven't read our books, we would love to connect with you and just talk about our writing. And if you're a writer or an author, also connect with us, because we would love to be able to be alongside you in your journey and be able to help you and answer questions. And so we are grateful for you being here, and we hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll let Caitlin say anything if she has anything more that she wants to add.
Yeah. Way to put me on the spot there. No, we appreciate you, and we look forward to just the journey ahead for the Story Weavers table, but also for you to just get a glimpse into everyday writing life, or just things that we experience. We go through things that we read and we enjoy. You're going to hear all kinds of things that we normally just talk about in our calls. So now we get to share it with you too. So I'm excited. We would love to hear even just what kind of stories you love to read, connect with us. And we're just thankful that God has given us the ability to, or the calling on creativity that he gives us, and how he can speak through us and use our words to maybe uplift or encourage someone else. And so that's our goal for you. Whenever you maybe run across our books or our accounts, or even this show, the Story Weavers table. And so we look forward to sharing more with you soon.
Yeah, thank you for watching this, and we'll see you next time.